Police have now been able to establish that the boy he was carrying was almost certainly Barry Lewis. He seemed sleepy and listless, but he was alive. Last September, 4 missing children dominated the headlines. One of them was Leonie Keating, and you may remember we featured the hunt for her killer on our October programme. The bodies of Leonie and 2 other children were found soon after they went missing, and arrests were made. But there was no trace of the 4th child, 6-year-old Barry Lewis from South London. His whereabouts remained a mystery for 3 months, until December, when his body was discovered in a field in Essex. Tonight, police are disclosing new evidence about the case in the hope that you might help catch Barry's killer. Our reconstruction begins in London at the market close to where he lived. Sunday morning, 15th of September, at East Street Market in Walworth. The stalls were busy with shoppers as usual. Just 200 yards away from the end of the market, at the junction with Dawes Street, Barry was staying temporarily at the house of friends, the Leightons, while his mother was waiting for rehousing by the council. That day, Barry had lunch at the house with Denise Leighton and her children before going out to play with 7-year-old Jackie.
You coming out to play? Yeah.
Where are you going?
I'm going out in front.
All right then. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye.
Barry and Jackie went down East Street to Trafalgar House in Bronte Close to play with their friend Michelle. Michelle's mother, Mrs. Ford, kept an eye on them as they played outside the flats. Then Michelle and Barry went up to the flat, leaving Jackie playing downstairs.
Get down from there before you break your neck.
Barry decided to go home, and Jackie went with him to the corner of Bronte Close.
All right, I'll see you later. I'm going home now. Bye.
Barry walked on down Blackwood Street towards East Street. What happened next is a mystery. By 4 o'clock on East Street, the market was gone, and Barry too had completely vanished. For 3 months, nothing was heard of him. Then in December, his body was found in a field 25 miles away. 16th of September, the day after Barry disappeared. On the road known as the Crooked Mile, just outside Waltham Abbey in Essex, a man had run out of petrol. He left his car at the entrance to Travers Piggery. Police have now been able to establish that the boy he was carrying was almost certainly Barry Lewis. He seemed sleepy and listless, but he was alive. The nearest garage, Abbey petrol station, was 3 miles down the road.
What's the can take?
About £2 left.
Right, I'll pay for it now.
Thank you. Run out of petrol?
Yeah, up for a good mile.
Can you give this man in the child a lift back to his car up the Crooked Mile?
I'm sorry, I'm going the other way, Chingford.
There should be somebody who'll take you.
It's okay. I'll get there.
The man walked a few hundred yards up the Crooked Mile and stood hitchhiking at a junction opposite Lee Valley Nurseries. Seeing the boy and the petrol can, a local man on his way home stopped to help.
Can I give you a lift?
Yeah, please.
Where's your car?
It's in the entrance to a farm, just up the road on the right.
Would it be better to put the child on the back seat?
Nah, you'll be all right here.
The child okay?
He's a bit poorly. He didn't sleep well last night.
The driver noticed that the man seemed edgy and reluctant to talk. He drove him up the road past the pink house at Clapgate Lane.
Here it is. Over there.
The driver took them back to Travers Piggery. He remembers that the man's car was a red hatchback, similar to a Talbot Horizon. It was in a tatty condition.
They manage now?
Yeah, it's okay, I'll be all right now.
Well, Barry's body was found just a mile away 3 months later. Superintendent Hatfull is leading the hunt for his killer. Perhaps you could take us through on the map where the man and boy went that day on the 16th of September.
Yes, the garage is in the centre of Waltham Abbey and is approximately 3 miles away from where the red car was parked and about a mile and a half away from where the boy's body was eventually found.
Which was near the pink house in Clapgate Lane?
Yes, on the bridle path.
Right. The car seemed fairly distinctive. Do you think he might be still driving that car? The red
There's a
hatchback?
possibility he may still have it. It was a red hatchback car, most probably a Talbot Horizon, described as about 5 to 7 years of age and in a fairly tatty condition.
Now, we saw the man on the film leave the car, and then the next we saw him was walking into Abbey petrol station. Somebody surely must have seen him on that 3-mile route carrying the boy. He must have looked quite conspicuous. Do you think he walked all the way carrying the boy anyway?
No, not only do I believe that somebody saw him, I'm positive somebody picked them up and gave them a lift. I desperately want to trace that motorist and the car that he himself was using when that happened.
What about the petrol station itself? Do you think there were many people there to see him?
Yes, it was a very busy evening in the petrol station, rush hour. We know that there were several other customers getting petrol, and in particular, there was one man who was in fact asked by the petrol attendant whether he could give the man and the boy a lift back along the Crooked Mile, and he declined because he was on his way to Chingford, which is opposite direction. We also desperately wish to find that man.
Right. Now, that incident was 24 hours after Barry had first disappeared. What do you think happened in those intervening 24 hours?
I'm convinced that Barry was certainly alive for 24 hours after he was kidnapped in the hands of his abductor. There's every likelihood that he was kept in that motor vehicle in the Epping Forest or South Essex or Hertfordshire area, and we want anybody who can remember seeing the unlikely of that man with the small boy and the car to come forward and speak to us.
Once again, can we have your description of the man? We have a video fit.
Yes, he was about 30 to 35 years old, 5 feet 10 inches tall, normal build. He's described as having a line face or a wrinkled complexion, more than perhaps his years should show.
And he's a local man, is he?
Every indication from the way he spoke and the way he acted seems to show that he knew that area and he had some local knowledge of the places we've mentioned.
Right. Now, it's 4 months since Barry disappeared now. How urgent do you think it is that you find him?
It's vital that we find this man. It was a brutal and callous murder of a small boy by a man who went out looking for his victim, and having found him, I'm positive that he knew what he was going to do to him and how his end would be. I'm absolutely certain we will catch him, not only for what he did to Barry Lewis, but because we have the very real fear that having done this once, he will set out to do it again.
Mr. Hatfull, let's hope that somebody can help. If you can help in any way, please do ring us.
Leslie Bailey was convicted of killing Barry Lewis 6 and Jason Swift 14 in 1989, and later at another trial on 22nd October 1992 of killing Mark Tilsley, aged 7. Sidney Cook, Leslie Bailey, Robert Oliver and Stephen Barrell were convicted of the manslaughter of Jason Swift 14. Jason Swift died during a homosexual orgy at a flat on the Kingsmead estate in the Hackney in 1985, where a number of men had each paid £5 to have sex with him. However, Jason Swift died during the process. Barry Lewis had been kidnapped in 1985 and taken to a flat and sexually assaulted by about 8 men. After Leslie Bailey drove him to Waltham Abbey, Essex, where he was going to kill him and bury him. However, Barry Lewis woke up on the way, and so Leslie Bailey suffocated him with a blanket. Pathologists found a large amount of sedatives and muscle relaxants in his body. Because of the nature of his crimes against children, Leslie Bailey became a Rule 43 prisoner, which meant he was isolated from the other prisoners for his own protection. However, he was murdered in Whitemoor Prison on the 7th of October 1993, having been strangled with a ligature in his cell. Michael Caine and John Brooks were convicted of his murder.